My name is Fred. I've been in Charlotte for now like 11 years or so, and I've done essentially the same thing every day since college, which is doesn't really feel like work anymore, but it's great. And I'm here today to talk about, I was going back and forth with Dustin, being in the digital marketing world. I feel like there's a lot of different topics that are misunderstood or people want more information about or whatever. And I've given actually maybe 5 or so talks at this Tech Talks about different things. Hopefully this is a different one and that you will at least learn one thing. But yeah, so I'm going to talk today about free versus paid. So I'll get in a little bit about like what search engines are doing with like organic listings versus paid listings. And then just to jump to the end, the Patriot Act is being is up like on the floor of the House or the Senate, like right now being debated if it will be reenacted for another 4 years. And that's kind of the dark side stuff, but we'll get to that. But again, hopefully you'll learn just one practical thing, but maybe just to get it kicked off with a quick little survey on free versus paid. So YouTube's owned by Google. It's the 3rd largest site in the world, versus Vimeo, which is a little bit higher quality. I don't know, which, just as a quick survey, who, if you had to select one, if you're going to upload a video, maybe for your business, would you put it on YouTube, quick show of hands, versus Vimeo? All right, so looks like YouTube people are more would do that. So maybe we'll go through some of the pros and cons of that. Just a little more about me. So this was me on Monday. I am addicted to cycling. It's kind of a spiritual thing for me. But this is on the top of Mount Mitchell. So I did this ride from Greenville to Mount Mitchell and ride all around the place. That's why I was a little late today, because I was just having fun riding around. Here's my 2 little kids. I pulled them around, and they like to eat ice cream just like I do. And we went to, has anybody been to the Leaf Festival? You all heard of this thing before? It's in Black Mountain, North Carolina. We just went there. It was out of this world. Like, this is the first thing we saw. There's a guy on top of like an 80 sedan hula hooping, and they have like a seat mounted on the trunk. So that was a lot of fun to do with the kids. So this is the name of my company, Mouse and Man. This is what I was referring to earlier, that I go to work, but I really just get to play all day. And I know I'm really lucky to be able to do that. This is a picture of our office. This is some of the people I work with. And this is another passion of mine. So a smart person told me one time, if you want to get better at something, you need to do it every day. So I want to get better at art. And one of my goals in life is to sell a painting for $100,000. So if anybody knows anybody with a cool $100,000 that wants to, you can hook me up. But I'm at day like 260 or something like that. So I paint every day on my iPad. That's a passion of mine. So free versus paid. So the first thing that comes to me when I think of free are ads. So that is a lot of times kind of like the currency that you pay for free. And when you look at apps and how much they cost or don't cost if they're free, so you see the trend here over time is that people are offering them up for free. I guess hopefully with getting like an upgrade or something later on, or they can take your personal information and they can sell that and they can make money on that. But that definitely is the trend, and I think there's a number of app developers in here. Anybody want to comment on personal viewpoints on like free versus paid? Like what kind of apps are you making or developing? Are you doing free ones? You just mentioned
the spectrum's free all the way up to premium business apps.
Okay. And how do you approach how much you should charge or offer them for free?
The smaller the audience for the app, the more I charge for it.
Okay. So if it's a really large audience,
If
then
it's a
it would
really
be
large
low
audience,
cost.
99
free.
cents are free with some other type of monetization.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's a really small audience, then $4.99, $5.99, something like that.
Okay. And then when you offer a free app, what's your monetization strategy for that?
It's the way I've set it up is I have companion apps. So the free app is free, and then it drives traffic for them to buy my paid app.
Okay.
So they kind of go hand in hand. They're similar genre, similar target audience.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, and I get like an 8% conversion on it. Not bad.
Yeah, that's healthy.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, it's definitely the trend here in app development, and I would say throughout the interwebs. But when you look back, one of the first more popular sites was Craigslist, and I thought it was an interesting kind of idea and how it was formed. And here's a quote from Craig, but essentially he could have made like a boatload of money from Craigslist, but he was like, I don't need a lot of money. Money doesn't really bring me a ton of happiness. Like I have enough and I'm content, and I'm just gonna have a small group of people, and it's kind of this idea of pay it forward. I don't really feel like I see a lot of people out there now that are creating these, humongous applications with that same kind of mentality. Most of the time, when I see stuff that is free, I kind of question it. I'm like, well, what am I going to pay if something is free? Or maybe a different way to think about it is, how do you pay for something that is free? I don't think that we think of a lot of times that it's, just kind of going through the world and, all right, I'm going to get out my phone and I'm going to do this thing. It doesn't really cost me anything, but I think at the end of the day it does. But that was interesting. I was going through this presentation this morning with my daughter, and she was my critiquer. And we got to this last slide, and she was like, well, what do you, when somebody, like, I was asking her, what happens when somebody wants to give you something for free? And like instantly she was like, that's like the man giving you candy, like, yeah, stranger danger, like, bad signs. And I was like, yeah, like, we are kind of conditioning our kids to think like that. Yet I think as a society don't really think that way too. But I don't know, maybe we should, and we can get into that a little bit later. But especially when you're getting stuff for free online, what are you paying for it? And my opinion of that answer is that you're paying for it with your data, your currency, which I think today is one of the most valuable currencies online. And we'll get into some people later on that like buy and sell our data with and without our permission. And in between there's like a huge gray area, like terms of service, like who in the world is going to read these things? And I sign, when I'm loading up apps, I just like blow through these things. And, that's how we, as a society now that are always connected and always on, are just opting into all of these campaigns. So to answer the question, what are the companies then doing with that data? I think some can say that they are leveraging it and utilizing it and making really profitable companies from it. I think you can also say that sometimes it can be construed as like they're stealing from us to some extent too. So that brings us to the question, is our data being leveraged or stolen? And I don't think I have a good answer to either of those, but maybe at the end of the day it's kind of a mix of both. So maybe it's something to ponder and to think about. But I did put in, I think, the description of this presentation that I was going to teach you hopefully one thing that you didn't know. So this is my attempt at that one thing, which is a really effective marketing campaign that I run a lot for clients, and it's called remarketing campaigns, and they're run through AdWords. And so have you guys seen this guy before? Like, he's like one of the most popular stock photo guys. It's like if you go to these stock sites and you're like successful businessman, he's always there, and he's like doing lots of different poses and things like that. But he's like the typical boss. But I figured I'd put him on there. Yeah. So when we talk about remarketing, we're talking about cookies, and not those kind of cookies though. So cookies are kind of how you're identified online. So most of the time people don't know our names, or I guess that's like the only thing that they don't know sometimes. But if you're really good and you know where to look, you can find anything about anyone. But remarketing campaign works where you go to a site, and most of the time, without you knowing about it, you're put onto a list or database based on what pages you go to on the site, or if you put something in your shopping cart. So just as an example, I'll pick on you, Soph, because what's something that you are interested that you want to buy?
Most of the remarketing stuff I see is the stuff I already bought.
So it's kind of counterproductive. Like, I already bought it. Like, make this go away.
Tile recently, which is those little like Bluetooth-enabled things to find your keys, and now everywhere I go, I see tiles, even though I already have like 4 of them.
Okay, yeah. So, well, assuming you, maybe you'll buy more. But you just brought that up, and then maybe somebody here is like, tile, what is that? I'm gonna go research that. So maybe it will work for them. But at any rate, so you've gone to some sort of site and opted in without really pressing any buttons or anything. But you're identified as pro tile, and then when you go to the Weather Channel or wherever else, you have the likelihood that you'll see ads for what you're just on. And it's really effective, and agreed to or not is kind of a theme and a current I'd like you to take away from this, is that nobody's like raising their hand saying like I am a tile person or anything like that. It's just the natural behavior and progression of the internet and how advertisers are capitalizing on it is what's happening. One of the cool things about remarketing list and kind of mad scientist things is, so let's take like Kermit the Frog as a person here, and let's say Kermit was he came to the Skookum Tech Talks, and what you can do with similar audiences is look at features that are similar to Kermit, and then say like, here's other kinds of people that might also want to go to Skookum Tech Talks, even though they didn't come here. So you say, you're a Muppet, you're a fictitious character, or something like that. And it's really interesting that you can make, like, if you have a large enough data set, you can say like crazy things like, people that drive minivans are predisposed to like eat gummy bears or buy tile, or to download these kind of apps. But I think it's fascinating that things that somewhat don't seem like they would connect actually do, and that's kind of like the secret sauce of the remarketing campaigns, I think, are these similar audiences. So people that have not only not opted in, but just have similar demographic or psychographic profiles of people that are shown to, I guess at the end of the day, buy stuff from websites. So to answer this question, is it being leveraged or stolen? I think it depends, and I think a lot of it is driven by money. So if you are someone that's obviously in the data space and you make a lot of money from it, of course you're leveraging it. And if not, and you're a consumer, maybe you think the other, but maybe just something to think about. A SERP comparison, and SERP stands for Search Engine Results Pages. So for search dorks like myself, we have all these acronyms we use. So here's a screenshot of what a SERP used to look like. This is, I think, from Google. You can't see it that well here, but there used to be, much more pronounced like background color to where the ads are. And there's a background over here. It doesn't come off that well on the screen, but now the ads are really, I think, much more a part of the results. And the only real difference are between an ad and actual content are these little yellow things. And my prediction is that all of this on the SERP is just going to be homogenized. It's going to be all the same, and you're not going to know if you're clicking on content or you're clicking on an ad. And I'm not sure. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but that's the trend. So that ads are becoming more like content.
We see that on Facebook too. That Facebook's driving you to create your ads to be more content focused as opposed to being more advertising like.
Mm-hmm.
They want your ad to look more like content, and if it looks like an ad, they reject it.
Right, because people don't want to click on ads, or they don't want to. I think maybe the more people that find out about how this is being used, they're like, hey, I just want to go on Facebook and I want to see pictures of dogs. Like, I don't want to see, I don't want to be advertised to. I just want to do what I want to do. And to that point, Tom, I think that definitely holds true with, the opposite I would think holds true for display ads on websites. And I think it deals with intent. So when people go on to Google or they go onto Facebook, their intent, like when they put in a query, is they want to answer to their question, or then when you go on Facebook, they want pictures of dogs or something. When people go onto a website, they want the content on that website. But publishers need to make money, and they need to monetize the traffic that's on their website, so they put ads on there. And the trend with ads on websites is that they really need to look like ads. Like Google's pushing very hard. Like I worked with a client, they were in the online gaming space, and one of the tricks, whatever that we did, is we wanted our ads to blend in. We wanted our ads to look like content. So when people went to the sites, they just clicked on our images, and they didn't really know that it was an ad, and they made a ton of money doing that. Google banned their entire campaign though, and we had to redo all the ads by putting very distinctive borders around the outsides of the ads, and now they have a more strict ad policy because it goes back here to intention. When people go to Walmart, they're looking to buy stuff from Walmart, and when you see the ad for Netflix, Google wants, or whoever is serving up the ad, wants to make sure that when you click on that ad, that your intention is that you want to, you're interested in that other material. So kind of a summary of the differences that I see are that SERPs are becoming, and Facebook, social networks are becoming more, the ads on those networks are becoming more content driven, whereas on display with like websites and things like that, they're becoming more ads, which I think is interesting. And why? That's a good question. Maybe it has to deal with trust. This is an eye tracking study that was recently done on a SERP. So see a lot of people, and when they did these things, and it's like a Doppler radar thing. So the more vibrant the color, the more they put these goggles on people, and they follow where your eyes go on the screen. There's more emphasis on the top, less on the bottom. A couple years ago, it used to be more spread out. So I think the trend overall is that people are trusting these, the algorithms and engines to return content to the users that is relevant and helpful. So Google sees that, and they say that that we can capitalize on this, and ultimately we can make more money by kind of making these ads look more like content. So I think that's part of the reason that is driving that that decision. And I think the opposite is true for websites, and that's why we're forcing the ads to look more like ads on them. All right, so to get into some of the other kind of gray areas on my talk. So here's an example of one of these companies you can go to, and you can buy data from. This is a huge industry. It says on here it's a $300 billion a year industry. This is one of the largest ones of one of these companies. Is a data brokering company. And there's all different kinds of providers out there. So if you have like a partial record on somebody, like if you have a phone number and an email address and you want their Facebook profile, like you can buy that kind of data. Or if you don't have any data and you just say, I want information about Fred, and there's a lot of people that you can buy that from. Yeah, so that's the trend. That's what's going on, and the way a lot of these companies, like I was saying earlier, get their information is, I think, from all of us just opting into these campaigns and just kind of the natural progression about how we interact online. So yeah, the Patriot Act. So the big vote is on June 1st, and the most controversial part of this act is called 215, and this is just a short little quote from that. But yeah, it was definitely not a bad thing at all. And I definitely understand why it was created, to be able to snoop on essentially anybody under the umbrella that if you're a terrorist, they could thwart another terrorist act. And this act essentially has been, without much debate, has been reenacted like year after year after year. But now, as more people are understanding about how a lot of the data works and things like that, they're like, wow, I don't really like the idea of people being able to see, especially with how connected we are, like lots of these different aspects of our life. Like, should people know that I go to these kinds of websites or whatever? Should my grandkids know that I do these kinds of things or not? And yeah, so that's what's going on, and I don't know if it's gonna pass or not, but there you go. Here's some quotes that I just threw in here. I thought were timely. No government can continue good, but under the control of the people. And I thought this is interesting. Ronald Reagan said the 9 most terrifying words. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. So there's another quote from Snowden. And did anybody see the Snowden John Oliver thing? That you guys have to watch this thing. It is a riot. It killed me. Like, he broke like the extremely like controversial thing down into dick pics, and he was talking about these things. And it's interesting. I think why he chose to like bring it down on that level is because, and this is a quote from that interview, like, it's so complex what's going on right now, and nobody understands it. So John was like, everybody understands dick pics. Like, you take a picture of your junk and you send it. Like, should other people have the ability to, to see that or share that or whatever? And like, he was on the street, like, interviewing these people, and then he got Snowden too.
Wait, did you just get a pic like that, or
yeah. So that, I think the problem is like there's so much writing on that and it's really complicated. I don't understand a lot about it, but yeah, you should definitely check it out and read more about it. And I thought there's another great quote from the interview. If we sacrifice our values because we are afraid, we don't really care about these values very much. So that's it. So that's my contact information and my cell. If you want to catch up with me and talk more about tracking or remarketing or anything at all. Thanks for your time. You got a question? You can ask anything except the last part.
So, as people, we always have like a natural aversion to giving away our data or having other people know stuff about us. But like, the reason why marketers want to know more about us is so you can serve more relevant ads that we would like better. So do you think that as marketing gets better, we would be less kind of put off by it? I mean, is it just a bad taste we have in our mouth from the old days of really crappy and irrelevant marketing? Will we ever cross that gap, or do you think that that point that you made about the gap in expectations between or intent, is that always going to be there?
I think it's a great question. I don't have a good answer to that. I think that might be part of the reason why you see on the SERP ads being more in general, like on Facebook, ads being more a part of content, because it is getting a hell of a lot better. And it feels less like advertising at the end of the day. Personally, I'm not crazy about it. The more I feel like I understand about this stuff, I'm like, I don't know, I just want to go outside and ride my bike and play with my kids or something.
And that's from a marketer.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think is off?
I think it is getting better. I think the ads that we see now are more relevant and less offensive to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's allowing marketers to do what you're showing with making ads look more like content, because they feel more like content. It's not like I'm reading about JavaScript and suddenly there's a Viagra ad in the middle anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm reading about JavaScript and then there's some service.
Yeah. So, like an example you shared earlier, at least you're seeing an ad for Tile, even though you've already bought 4 of them. You're not seeing an ad for Viagra or whatever else anymore. So, and there's a long way to go. We can be incredibly more efficient than how we are now. We can say okay, you've already bought Tile. Let's look at other kinds of things.
We're all fighting against that progress. We all really want terrible ads, and we're adamant about it.
I used to work for a client, and that was our jam. This was really shady stuff. We were doing affiliate marketing, and it was all these remember, I don't know if they still have these ad campaigns, but a lot of them were on YouTube, the belly fat thing, lose weight and all this stuff. And we found out that the most ugly ads, offensive and grotesque as we could get, those were the ads that were really effective, because they stood out on the website. Oh my gosh! And if you had enough gumption to click on it, you were way more likely to convert on the campaign.
So how can I increase privacy with one real trick?
Don't use the internet.
Yeah.
This one little known trick.
I was reading that I think Snowden was talking about this, that if you use my default answer would be to use the Tor network or whatever, but just by using, so Tor is supposedly this anonymous network where you can't be tracked and things like that. Just by using Tor, the government presumes that you're doing nefarious things, and then they track you even more. So they're all over Tor, and I'm sure they have some sort of backdoor to get into that. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Go to Montana or something. Get away. Sorry. Yeah.
I was thinking it has to do with our trust. I mean, I've shopped at Amazon. I've given up my right to privacy to Amazon for sure, because they know what I buy, they know what I like, and they show me ads all the time. That doesn't bother me a whole lot because I sort of trust them. What seems creepy to me is when I go to a website that is not a website that I frequent, and I see ads for stuff that just feels invasive to me. It's that question of trust. How much do I trust this site? And then where'd they find that out about me? Whatever that thing is. If they know that I have kids, or they know that I'm into whatever, how do they find that out? It's obvious. It's obvious. I mean, looking at the power editor on Facebook, for example, they're tied to the Axiom data, and you can correlate crazy stuff. Not only age, location, income, but company they work for. I mean, family dynamics, all those kinds of things. I did an ad campaign one time, targeted 11,000 people in the entire U.S. You can really narrow it down. This age, this location, this much pay, this family situation, whatever. I mean, it's really scary to think that those data sets are easily, put together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Asaf brought up a good point. Like, it's it's scary on one hand. It's also effective, and people make a lot of money from it. So I think that's why it's hard to say like, if we do live in a capitalistic society, and that's if the economy kind of drives things like.
I choose to do business with Google, and I
Yeah.
know exactly what they do with my data. Well,
Yeah.
I know what they can do with my data. They're probably doing more than I know.
Yeah, and it is becoming more targeted. So, yeah, that's where everything's going. So that's the trend in general. Any other questions or comments? Everybody sufficiently creeped out?
Well, I guess one question would be what can we do to make it more understandable, a la John Oliver? Although I have to say, in my community, the idea of talking about taking pictures of your junk and messaging it to somebody else, not common, right? We don't. But if I went to my friends and family and community and started using the term dick pic, they wouldn't know what I was talking about.
Right.
At least I presume they would. How sure are you?
It's one way to find out. So your question is like, what can we do about this?
People understand it, because people just don't get it. They
Yeah.
have no idea.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's part of the reason I think why I put on this presentation is I don't think a lot of people do. Probably I think people in this room are much more informed than the average person about this, but yeah, I think it's a problem when people are making so much money off of other people that they have no idea what they're opting into and kind of the system that.
But it's not even just the money side of it, right? So I mean, the government long before 9/11, the Patriot Act, would buy data that they couldn't collect on American citizens from private agencies. So the government's not allowed to spy on you in the U.S., right? CIA can't do that, but they could buy that information from other private agencies. And so I don't think it's going to go away just because other people want the data, right? Whether there's money to be made or not. I mean, some companies going to make the money because the government will always buy it.
I was just talking to this guy this week. He was in the mortgage business, and he's got an old school technique, and he makes so much money for his clients. They, when you get your credit run to get a loan for a house, that single action, you can go to Experian or whatever, and you can buy that from the credit agency. And that's what he does for his clients. He goes in and they buy it on Monday. So anybody that like has, a loan credit check run against them like over the weekend, they buy that on Monday and they send a direct mail to them and they get it by like Wednesday. So if you're like getting a loan through Wells Fargo or whatever, and then he works with other like smaller lenders and say, hey, we have a lower rate or whatever it is. And I was like, you can buy that from like the credit people? Like I didn't know you could even do that. But yeah, money drives a lot of stuff.
How can I cash in on this exciting business opportunity?
Talk to me. Yeah.
But seriously, like, how are people starting to think like in the future when we start having augmented reality and where the holodeck just came out? Like, isn't it going to be kind of abrasive to have ads shooting to our eyeballs, literally? Like, is anyone thinking about that in any sort of capacity?
Marketers.
Yeah, like Minority Report, right? Like they would scan your eyes, and you'd be walking down the street, and they would get like a personalized ad on the street. Like,
Minority Report.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Like, if we do start doing those kinds of things, and like, I don't know if they're gonna advertise in like Google glasses or is that still around, the Google Glass thing? Like that was all the rage. Yeah, I remember I went to Google and I was walking around and a lot of people had it. It was a weird thing. Yeah, I think ultimately it's up to us as a society to say like we want this or we don't want this. That's what kind of bothers me about like the Patriot stuff is like, I think if people really knew what was going on, like they'd be like, oh my God, like I can't believe this is happening. But it's so complex that we aren't intelligent enough to have like a real conversation about it, and it has to be distilled down to dick pics in order for us to digest it.
I mean, it seemed to me if somebody from the government in a trench coat with a hat was following you around with a notebook and writing down everything you did, you would say that's really creepy, right? If there was somebody shadowing me. But somehow when they're collecting metadata that basically knows I'm at Skookum right now, then that isn't problematic. And I think that's where people don't. That's the best analogy I could come up with is if there was a government agent following you around, writing stuff down in a notebook, would that bother you? And people almost universally are like, well, that's kind of weird. I mean, I'm not a criminal. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just living my life.
That's
They
why,
wouldn't.
that's
Then
why
you've got
I
nothing to hide.
purposefully would do things to mess with them. And that's what I do online. I just click weird random banner ads.
So that's your story, huh?
How did you get those weird banner ads?
Yeah, that's
I
right.
try and introduce as much randomness into their profile of me as possible.
And then you get worse ads.
So you try this.
That sounds like a
That's
business
my
opportunity.
browser
Like
clicking
you could
on
create
ads.
a bot that just goes and pretends to be you and just goes around and randomly clicks things.
Well, you can
Horribly backfire.
run that Tor server and
Run your own
all the
Tor
random
server.
traffic of the internet.
Did you have a question?
Well, maybe. Dan kind of asked the same sort of question, but now I'm wondering about what if we just played devil's advocate for a moment? And so, yeah, it is creepy if there's a single person in an isolated situation targeting someone and recording data to get this person's data. But what if? So there's all this metadata out there, and let's just say, wouldn't it be nice if it were just all organized? And so it's all there, and you can buy it and sell it. So, I mean, I don't know. My question is, does the government, when they buy this data, know exactly what it is they're buying? Do they know what kind of people are going to be in these data sets? I mean, or does the feeling for any of you knowing that all your data is out there, knowing that it's kind of enmeshed with millions of other people's data, does that make you feel safer? Like, in the sense that you might be safe in a large crowd of people? If there were some dangerous event, you're not going to predict that you might be hurt. There's so many other people that might be hurt. Maybe you're not going to be targeted. There's so many other people that could be targeted. I'm really just kind of going
Yeah,
on here now.
my thinking about that is, if I'm in public, if I'm at Speed Street and you can see me, of course you can see me. I don't care. But when I'm not at Speed Street, you can't see me anymore, and you don't know that I was there. If you've collected data about me that you retained for a long period of time, and 6 months from now you want to do some investigation, and you find, oh, Tom was down by Speed Street. There was this thing that was going on. I wonder if he was involved. All of a sudden it's that ability to paint that picture forever of where I was and what I was doing. I don't mind if you see me, I'm in public for heaven's sakes. But being able to build that profile that lasts forever, that's forever queryable. And once you've built the data set, it's never going away. That's not even on the floor for debate about whether the data they've already collected for the last 10 years is going away.
But people have seen you there.
Yeah.
Lots of people have recorded
Sure.
that forever in their minds. It's just not, as
But it's not
accessible.
indexed, it's not accessible,
But
it can't be queried.
I don't think the time component matters, right? I mean, I was there. People saw me, whether they go and ask a person 6 months or 6 years later, hey, was he there? Right? That information is still available. So whether they stick it in the database and keep it around forever so that they can go back and query it, or they index it or do whatever they want with it, the time isn't so bothersome as the fact that they have that data or not. And if it happens in public, I'm a lot less worried about it, right? Because there are people there. They could say, oh, he was there. It's when I leave the public streets and they continue to gather data that you might have that I might have some objections.
And again, with querying the data, there was a big hoopla about the iPhone keeping track of where you go, and then they allowed you to turn it off. I left mine on purposefully because I listen to a lot of crime podcasts and stories and stuff like that, and it's what if me having that database on where it's tracking me exonerates me from a crime that I was wrongfully accused of? There's ways that this data could be used for good as well.
On a small level, where there used to be a newspaper in Charlotte called the Charlotte Observer, if you don't remember any of that. But there was a big article, front page, multi-day front page about this whole thing on how police they had some sort of, and I'm sure they still use it, cell phone scanner thing where they could go in, they could listen to people's calls. And once the public got a hold of this, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. So that's a very small level. And I think if those people knew just a little bit about how much of their lives is already out in the domain, they would be appalled. But I think it's just an interesting small little case study. They're like, oh my gosh, these people can listen to our phone calls. And like, not only can they listen to our phone calls, they know everything else that we do all the time.
Well, and just so you know, if you ever file a Freedom of Information Act request on yourself from the FBI, you will get nothing back.
Redacted.
No, they just still say we don't have a file for you. Even though I know friends who have done that I know have a file.
Well, I can see my file, and it's a lot of black lines. So.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Or your file if you request mine. That's how we cash it
To
in.
kind
Mark
of
it up to me.
Piggyback on what he was saying,
Uh-huh.
the alternative perspective. What's the solution to actually catching the people that actually do want to hurt us and do want to kill us in the world? How do you gather that specific data that will help prevent the next 9/11? Or how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of smart people that work on that. I was reading.
I'd just be happier if they figured out
What's
the
that?
answer.
Withdraw troops.
I'd be happy if they
One of the
figured out
ways
the
not to
answer
slow down.
before they came up with a solution, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
very often you end up with the security theater, right, where we're going to have you do this crazy dance in the airport, but guess what? We're not going to catch anybody carrying the next bomb on. So it's security theater. They're coming up with something to make it look like they're doing something, but it's totally ineffective. So have a working solution before you implement it.
I was I read the one of the Freakonomics post or whatever. They got a lot of stuff they put out there, and they talked about some data scientists, and they found retroactively that terrorists were likely to do, people that created, did terror acts afterwards. They made, there's a couple different attributes that they made withdrawals from a bank on some sort of holy day, and they lived within a certain proximity of a mosque and something like that, and they were able to run a query against this, and they had a very high confidence. If you withdrew, it was a specific amount of money, $75 to $125 on a Tuesday on this day, and you lived within 2 miles of a mosque, you were way more likely to get ready to go blow something up. So I don't know if they run that kind of stuff now.
Just like marketers create profiles on us.
Oh yeah.
Question in a different direction. Since the turn of the millennium, to what extent do you feel that advertisers are actually getting their money's worth for all these increasingly sophisticated kind of things you're talking about? If it didn't pay, do you think they would just drop some of this crazy stuff?
Yeah, with the stuff that I do for my clients and talking with other people about remarketing campaigns, it's way more effective than traditional kinds of means. That's assuming that you have something that is trackable. If you're a company and you just want to raise your recognition or your brand or whatever, that's still really hard to track. But yeah, so if you think about it, traditionally you would say, I'm in the car business or whatever, and I want to market to people that make between $50,000 and $75,000 and are into swimming or something. So you could go look at publications that meet that, and there might be 50,000 people that meet those attributes, and you can go advertise to those people. So you go from that leap to now, here's one person that came to Ford.com, and they're looking at a specific kind of a truck. We're going to target to them exactly the kind of truck that they went to, only when they go onto other kinds of automotive websites or finance websites. And we'll be able to track them, how many times they come back to the website, and what other websites they go to. So it's kind of a night and day comparison. It's incredibly more effective. So I think the trend is definitely moving towards that, towards digital. Did I answer that?
So you're saying that it will increase because there's some evidence that it actually does pay.
I think there's a lot of evidence.
Whereas, say, if you take NASCAR, when it only cost a few $1 million to get your logo on the hood, people put it on the hood even if it didn't make much difference. Now to pay, say $50 million, they have to be much more assured that money is giving you a return.
Right, yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Fred.
Yeah. Thank you.